तवगतामृतं तप्तजीवनं कविभिरीडितं कल्मषापहं शरवणमङ्गलं श्रीमदाततं भुवि गणन्ति भूरिदा जना. Your words are like nectar and bring life to scorched souls. They are praised by poets and remove all sin. They are auspicious to hear, wonderful and exalted. Those who spread these words throughout the world are truly giving souls. Welcome to our class on the Gospel of Sri Ramakrishna. We started last week, chapter 19, The Master and His Injured Arm. This was Saturday, February 2nd, 1884. And now we're in the middle of that chapter on page 389. You may remember what happened, that Sri Ramakrishna was outside walking along the path near the Ganga, and they went into an ecstatic mood, had some vision of Jagannath, and somehow felt that he went to embrace it, and he fell down and he broke his arm. So this chapter begins with that. It was a very, very painful type of break, and they wrapped it with some gauze and bandage and everything, and it some type of compound fracture probably. In the pictures you can see his arm is a little bit crooked and everything. So he goes back and forth between kind of moaning and groaning like a little child and complaining, and going into ecstasy and laughing and making a play out of it. So this is the way this chapter began. He had been visited by Mahima Chakravarti, who had a number of hymns, Sanskrit verses, and things memorized. And Sri Ramakrishna used to request him to chant these things. I don't know if it was half to humor him or to be nice to him, but he took the attitude of a jnani, and like this the path of non-dualism and everything. So Sri Ramakrishna would speak to him according to his spiritual attitude. So we stopped where Mahima was about to read the 6 stanzas on Nirvana, one of the very famous hymns of Shankaracharya. Om, I'm neither mind, intelligence, ego, nor chitta, neither ears nor tongue, nor the senses of smell and sight, nor am I ether, earth, fire, water, or air. I am pure knowledge and bliss. I am Shiva. I am Shiva. I am neither the prana, nor the 5 vital breaths, neither the 7 elements of the body, nor its 5 sheaths, nor hands, nor feet, nor tongue, nor the organs of sex and voiding. I am pure knowledge and bliss. I am Shiva. I am Shiva. Neither loathing nor liking have I, neither greed nor delusion. No sense have I of ego or pride, neither dharma nor moksha, neither desire of the mind nor object for its desiring. I am pure knowledge and bliss. I am Shiva. I am Shiva. Neither right nor wrongdoing am I, neither pleasure nor pain, nor the mantra, the sacred place, the Vedas, the sacrifice, neither the act of eating, the eater, nor the food. I am pure knowledge and bliss. I am Shiva. I am Shiva. Death or fear I have none, nor any distinction of caste. Neither father nor mother, nor even a birth have I. Neither friend nor comrade, neither disciple nor guru. I am pure knowledge and bliss. I am Shiva. I am Shiva. I have no form or fancy. The all-pervading am I. Everywhere I exist, yet I am beyond the senses. Neither salvation am I, nor anything that may be known. I am pure knowledge and bliss. I am Shiva. I am Shiva. This, of course, is the attitude of the jnani, but this is really more the experience of the God-realized soul following the path of non-dualism. We we sometimes think that everyone's experience will be the same. If everybody gets to the roof, we're all taking different paths to get there. But the path that we take will really inform the type of spiritual experience and mood we have after the mind comes down a little bit. This is how we can have those God realized souls who only care about devotion, and those who only care about this absolute oneness with the Brahman. So this is the attitude of the Jnani, because they have that kind of experience. If everyone has the experience of Nirvikalpa Samadhi, it's an experience without any particular content, as it's explained to us. Of course, we have to have that experience to know, but it's not the type of experience that is going to make everybody come down from that experience with the same type of transformation. And this is why Sri Ramakrishna says some come down, they keep this ego of devotion, some keep this ego of knowledge. So the experience itself gives this ultimate transformation. We become free souls, but it doesn't determine exactly what our spiritual attitude will be. That'll be more determined by the path that we take to get to that type of realization. Since Sri Ramakrishna took all different paths, when he came back down, he could remain in all different moods. But for Shankaracharya, this was the main mood. Now we also have some devotional hymns and things, so we know that even for someone like Shankaracharya, he could have some devotional attitude also. But the main point is that those who follow this type of path, and these hymns are both. Almost everything that we find in this spiritual literature is both for sadhana and both for sadhya. It's for spiritual practice to attain the goal, and somehow it's also the goal itself. So if we want to follow that path, we do this as a spiritual discipline to try to feel that we're not this body, mind, senses, and everything. But after God realization, that'll be something certain. That'll be something unquestionable. After that experience of Nirvikalpa Samadhi, the devotee will not have the slightest feeling of identification with the body that ordinary people have. So this is both a beautiful description of the mind of the God realized soul, and also a path for those who follow this Jnana Yoga. We find this, for example, Stita Prajna section of the Bhagavad Gita, that it looks like it's just to give us a description of the God realized soul, but it's a blueprint, it's a map for us. That if the God realized soul has those qualities, and we want to become God realized, then we try to develop those qualities. So this is a beautiful type of hymn to remind us that we're something beyond all of these. The easiest way of understanding it is that we're the witness. We're the observer of the mind. We can see this body. We have all different ways of doing that. But anyhow, so six stanzas on Nirvana, the state of the God realized soul, but also a way to attain it. Now, for Sri Ramakrishna, all of these were spiritual attitudes. Nothing was a final fixed position that anybody had to take. And depending on his mood, sometimes he would like this, sometimes he preferred more of a dualistic attitude, and very often he would warn the devotees along this path of Jnana Yoga that there can't be any self-deception along this path. We can't claim all of those things, and then we'll go about living in the world, running after our desires and the name and fame and all of these different things, that we have to really follow these things. So we see that it says, each time Mahima repeated, I am Shiva, I am Shiva. The master rejoined with a smile, not I, not I. Thou art knowledge absolute. Now, is this a contradictory position? It's not a contradictory position, it's a different position. It's looking at it from a different angle. If we have this Tattvamasi, we take any of these Mahavakyas or the Soham, I am that, or thou art that, thou art one with the absolute Brahman, then we can understand it by either getting an identity between Tat and Tvam, identity between the individual soul and the Supreme Soul. Or we can get rid of this Supreme Soul, this concept of God outside of us, everything is the self. Or we can completely eliminate this ego and say God alone exists. God alone dwells within. 3 options in order to get oneness. We have A equals B, B equals A, or B alone exists, or A alone exists. 4 options, we can say, something like that. So none of them contradict each other mathematically, right? We substitute A for B, we substitute B for A. It doesn't make any difference. Mathematically, they're all the same. Not too much. Yeah. So Sri Ramakrishna's attitude was more that mother alone exists. Now, if we, for example, we look at this witness consciousness within, is this witness an I or is it a thou? Am I the one who's witnessing? There's no I within it. It's impersonal. There's no ego within it. Is it a thou? There's no separation there. Neither one is really a good description, but we can look at it from either point of view. Devotee will say that God alone is the witness dwelling within the heart. The Jnani will say, it's my own higher self. Sometimes Swamiji says, who am I praying to? I'm praying to my very own self. He doesn't mean just to the mind, he means to that higher self. But still, if the absolute reality is impersonal, then it's wrong to call it either an I or a thou, either a he or a she. It's a beyond person. There's no personality to it. And yet, if I say that it's that, or he or she, it gives a sense of distance and separation. If I say I am that, it gives a sense of the ego that I've identified with that. So this is why Sri Ramakrishna generally says this ultimate truth can't be expressed in words very well. But he liked this attitude, not I, not see. Sri Ramakrishna, two main attitudes. One was devotee is there, and devotee is like the vehicle, and mother is the operator of the vehicle. Or the devotee, the mother alone dwells within. Either she's impelling, so for Sri Ramakrishna, either she was providing the words for him to speak, or she herself was speaking through him. Not much of a difference. Slight difference. But it's not that the process is different, the description is different. And depending on how much of a sense of I, feeling of I, that the devotee has, that'll explain it a little differently. So not I, thou art knowledge absolute. This is to get rid of any sense of ego. Ordinary person who is instructed that you are one with God, they'll misunderstand. The average person will misunderstand because this sense of I has to be absolutely purified. Samshodhan. There's a concept where we have to, like a good editor, he'll get rid of all the mistakes in the text. So there's perfectly well edited, and there's nothing else. Everything that's extra, wrong commas, this and that, they have to remove everything till it's perfectly pure, you can say. So this has to be done for both this I, so that there's no trace of the ego, there's no trace of identification. That's what this hymn is all about. No trace of identification, even with our personality. This is the big problem. Not so much identification with his body, but identification with our personality. We know the body is changing. We know we're going to look different when we're young children and old people, but we have some sense of strong identification with our personality. And this also has to be seen as an object for awareness for the witness, that I'm not even that personality. If I want to understand how can this I be one with Brahman, it has to get rid of even that. It has to be the pure witness, which is perfectly impersonal. Everything personal within consciousness belongs to the object and not to consciousness itself. This is the idea that we have. So anyhow, Sri Ramakrishna laughing because he knows that two things. One is that Mahima, he likes this attitude, and two, he's not qualified for it. He's not qualified for it. If he really were, he'd be a God-realized soul. He actually was a very proud person, huh? Very proud of his learning and showed off his Sanskrit verses he knew and everything. So Sri Ramakrishna knows that not really appropriate for him, and this other attitude. It's the attitude that Sri Ramakrishna liked, but it's the one that he liked thought better for most devotees. That is safer and easier to understand and easier to follow. This path of non-dualism requires, from the very beginning, perfect detachment from the world and perfect detachment from this lower self and tremendous freedom from desires, all sorts of things that most people don't have, or at least don't have to that very high degree. Mahima read a few more verses and also a description of the 6 psychic centers of the body. He said that in Benares he had witnessed the death of a yogi in the state of yoga. This state of this must mean in samadhi. That actually to witness the death of someone in samadhi, it's virtually impossible for us to know the difference between being in samadhi and just the body being there. This is why when Sri Ramakrishna passed away, they couldn't tell for a long time, hours. They didn't know if it was just a very, very deep state of samadhi or if the prana had left the body, because the prana is hardly functioning in that state of samadhi. But if someone is in that state of meditation, after a while, if they've left the body will become stiff. It'll get cold. It'll start to decay, something like that. They'll know eventually. I remember many years ago, I was my first trip to India. Somebody told me that some yogi had come and just, it's not that uncommon. If somebody has a garden house, they'll just kind of set up in that garden house and they'll sleep there and they'll meditate and they'll go and beg their food and everything. So they said that the yogi one day sitting in meditation never got up from that seat of meditation. Somehow passed away in that state, and they had a photograph of it. I don't know, legitimate or not legitimate, but these things can happen. So this is what he's saying. He had witnessed the death of a yogi in the state of yoga. Mahima. There are fine passages in the Rama Gita. Master, you were speaking of the Rama Gita. Then you must be a staunch Vedantist. I don't know really much about this Rama Gita. Anybody know? I'm not sure where this is found, if it's part of Ramayana, Adhyatma Ramayana, or anything. I don't know. Now, staunch Vedantist for Sri Ramakrishna means non-dualist. I've mentioned this many times, that the followers of Madhva and Ramanuja, they can say we're also Vedantists. Everything is based on the Upanishads and Gita and everything, so they have a claim to it. But because of the Shankaracharya's influence, generally Vedanta, most people take it to mean Advaita Vedanta and Jnana Yoga. Then you must be a staunch Vedantist. How many books of that kind the sadhus used to read here? And Thakur had 2 different places, actually, when he was growing up in Kamarpukur. That was somehow one of the ways that people, sadhus, took on their way to pilgrimage to Puri. This is what we read, anyhow. And there was a wealthy family, the Lahas, and they had built a little place for sadhus to stay, and a feeding place and place to stay and everything. And Sri Ramakrishna, as a young boy, would hang out with them, and he would hear all their discussions and everything. This was one time. And then the early days of Dakshineshwar, before all the devotees came, so many sadhus came, and they had a place where they could stay and they could get their food there. So it was a very hospitable place for the sadhus, and they would hold all these discussions. And wherever there was any public type of discourse on the scriptures by any of these pundits, Ramakrishna would go. He would have Hridoy take him to these places. So he really, and we know about his memory, so he really had a very good background in some of these scriptures, Vedantic scriptures and things. We know Ashtavakra Samhita was the one in particular that he was very familiar with and he liked very much. So many times there'll be little expressions that Thakur uses that'll be an indication of all the things that he knew. For example, he sometimes he'll talk about the wave belongs to the ocean doesn't belong to the wave. The famous hymn by Shankaracharya that he must have heard at one time. It could be coincidence, but some of these things give us an indication of how vast his knowledge was. Not just his experience, but also how much he knew of scriptures, even though he very rarely quoted anything. He didn't care to, like pundits, to be reciting Sanskrit and everything. But he had the vast knowledge of these things. So even this Ramagita, he must have heard about. Mahima recited the description of Om. It is like the unceasing flow of oil, like the long peal of a bell. This unceasing flow of oil we read also as the description of the mind in perfect meditation. That there's no break. If you pour oil from one vessel to another, you see it kind of disappears into the oil. I was thinking the other day about these tea wallets in India when they pour tea or coffee and they'll go like this, huh? And you'll see it stream. There's not any break. There no water. There's flowing and nothing. It's just perfect stream, huh? So it's like that. That the thought, there's no gap in it. There's no break. There's no veering off in a different direction. This is the definition. So here, identified with the Om. So this is like our Mandukya Upanishad, description of Om, and the long peal of a bell. Now, Sri Ramakrishna also used to give that example, tong, huh? When he was explaining the meaning of Om. He used to say, oh, you like to say Auma. I like to say tong, this like the sound of because hearing that sound for Sri Ramakrishna would put him into samadhi like the sound of Om. That it indicates that mind, that witnessing consciousness of mind, which is present in the states of waking, dream, and deep sleep. According to Mandukya Upanishad, this is how Om is described. About the characteristics of samadhi, he read, the man established in samadhi sees the upper region filled with Atman, the nether region filled with Atman, the middle region filled with Atman. He sees all filled with Atman. Adhar and Mahima saluted the master and departed. So this is really the end of that day. We're still in the same chapter. At noon the following day, after his midday meal, Sri Ramakrishna was sitting on the small couch when Ram, Surendra, and a few other devotees arrived from Calcutta. They were worried about the master's injured arm. The arm was bandaged and was present. So these really, Ram, Surendra, and M, these are three of the very, very closest inner circle of householder devotees. Balaram Bose will be added, and some others also, but these are some of the very Girish, some of the very, very important devotees. Ram, of course, was one of the early ones to call Sri Ramakrishna an avatar. He was a relative of Swamiji's, and His house was like an open house that this Tarak, later Swami Shivananda, stayed there. This Nitya Gopal stayed there for some time. Other devotees would stay there also. And Surendra was very generous, even though generous but miserly. I mean, he knew the value of a coin. He didn't waste anything, but very generous with Sri Ramakrishna, and of course, helped these young boys with the Bharanagamad. So these are all very, very wonderful devotees, part of the divine play of Sri Ramakrishna. When we think of the inner circle, then we have to include these household devotees also. It's not just the monastic devotees, the antarangas. Master to the devotees. The mother has put me in such a state of mind that I cannot hide anything from anyone. So this is that mood of a child. Thakur very often said that the God-realized soul will have this in the Paramahamsa. They'll have the mood of the child. They like to keep children near them. Yeah, the 5-year-old boys, for some reason, that age suits their mentality, and looking upon God as mother. But this was very natural for him that he would act like a boy, small boy. Now, depending on who was there, if Gopala Ma was there, he would be like almost an infant, like the baby Gopala. If others were there, he could take a different type of attitude. He would be like Mother Yashoda when Rakala was there. He would look upon him as a child. So he had different moods, but this was very common for him to act and behave just like a child. That means with freedom, not attached to anything. The mother has put me in such a state of mind that I cannot hide anything from anyone. Mine is the condition of a child. Rakal doesn't understand it. He covers my injured arm, wrapping my body with a cloth, lest others should see my injury and criticize me. We have to remember that at this time, 84, that they're still young. That Narendra, Rakal, they're just 20, 21, something like that. They're not. In those days, I don't think people grew up so fast, especially in the village. Of course, they're from the big city and everything, but so this Rakal, he was very jealous at some time and very protective of Sri Ramakrishna. And we see that Narendra also, that he could seem like a wise guy a little bit and a little bit cheeky. And they were young. And Thakur didn't mind. He plays with them. And they would also get into a mood when they were with him. Rakal also sometimes would really just be like a small child. We can hardly imagine the scene to see him sitting on Thakur's lap like a child would sit on a mother's lap and everything. These things took place, though. He took Dr. Madhu aside and reported my illness, but I shouted and said, "Hello, where are you, Madhusudan? Come and see, my arm is broken." I used to sleep in the same room with Mathur and his wife. This Mathur Babu, this of course was the son-in-law of Rani Rashwani. At one time, Sri Ramakrishna was practicing this mood of a maidservant of the Divine Mother, and would stay with them, and almost like one of the household, but dressing like a woman and thinking of himself as a woman. And all of the other women also felt that he was another woman. There was no shyness or anything there. Again, very hard things for us to imagine. But this was part of his spiritual practice for this Madhur Bhava, in order to have that type of experience that I am the beloved and God, I'm the lover, God is the beloved. And it can be done as a handmaid of the Divine Mother with all of the others, or of course as Radha with Krishna. And Sri Ramakrishna, he liked both moods. So I used to sleep in the same room with Mathur and his wife. They took care of me as if I were their own child. I was then passing through a state of divine madness. So this isn't something that one can just decide one day that they'll do. It really, the whole personality has to undergo some type of transformation. Mata would ask me, Father, do you hear our conversation? Yes, I would reply. Once, Mata's wife became suspicious of his movements and said to me, if you go anywhere, and said to him, to Mata, if you go anywhere, he must accompany you, meaning Sri Ramakrishna. One day, Mata went to a certain place and asked me to wait downstairs. He returned after half an hour and said to me, come, Father, let us go now. The carriage is waiting. When Mata's wife asked me about it, I reported the thing correctly. I said to her, we went to a certain house. He told me to stay downstairs and himself went upstairs. He came down after half an hour and we left the place. Of course, she understood the thing in her own way. See, he's living with an avatar and has tremendous respect for him and love for him and reverence for him and everything. And still he'll go to the different places like that. A partner of Mathur's estate used to take fruits and vegetables stealthily from the temple garden. When the other partners asked me about it, I told them the exact truth. Of course, Thakur was impossible. It was impossible for him not to tell the truth. But it's just his guilelessness and the attitude of a child, that he's not hesitating. He could easily stick to truth without telling everything. He could avoid it, evade it somehow, but that wasn't his nature at all. That's the end of that day. And Sunday, February 24th, 1884. Sri Ramakrishna was resting in his room after his midday meal, and Mani Mallik was sitting on the floor beside him when M arrived. Mani Mallik is another one of these kind of secondary players in this big drama that Thakur had. He came fairly often. We'll see that he was around 65 at that time and had been a member of the Brahmo Samaj and came to Sri Ramakrishna partly because he was mourning the death of a son. And we find this in several cases, that somehow Sri Ramakrishna and later Holy Mother, somehow when people came to them who had lost a child or grieving over something else, how they could lift their grief somehow. It's really remarkable. We see it in so many instances with Golab Ma and who was it? Somebody brought a friend to Sri Ramakrishna. Many different times this happened. That the one extraordinary case was when a woman had lost an infant child and came to Holy Mother. She was a poor woman. I think she worked for Holy Mother, and our Holy Mother knew her. It wasn't just a stranger. And just in horrible grief, and everybody thought that Holy Mother would say something to her that, oh, my child, this is the will of the mother. What can we do? But Holy Mother didn't say anything. There were people wondering what's happening with Holy Mother. Then they saw finally tears are coming streaming down her eyes. And yes, that was enough somehow to remove that horrible grief and mourning of the devotee. So this was the case with Mani Mallik, and he used to say, nobody but Thakur could have removed my grief like that. So Mani Mallik was already there when M arrived. M saluted the master and sat down beside Mani. The master's injured arm was bandaged. Master to M. How did you come? M. I came as far as Alam Bazar in a carriage, and from there I walked. He was also a little tight with money, so he didn't want to spend the extra money. Manilal. Oh, no, this is M. M, I came, and then from there I walked. I don't know why exactly. Maybe it was just easy. M wasn't, it's not like he was cheap, but M also helped a lot of people and gave money to them and secretly, to Swamiji's mother and other things, and to later, of course, to Holy Mother, and he didn't make a lot of money, so he had to be careful with his money. Manila. Oh, he is so hot, Master with a smile. This makes me think that all these are not mere fancies of my brain. Otherwise, why should these Englishmen take so much trouble to come here? Englishman was the term that Sri Ramakrishna used for the Western educated Bengalis. Not just Western educated, but they would wear Western clothes sometimes. They worked in the office for the British people. And they had to dress like that and could speak English and everything. So he used to call them Englishmen. Sri Ramakrishna began to talk to them about his health and his injured arm. Master. Now and then I become impatient about my arm. Now, how can a God-realized person be impatient? He had to cover himself with this attitude of the child, otherwise the mind would just disappear in samadhi. The case was the opposite of ours. We're doing everything to avoid being impatient and everything. He had to do these things, otherwise he couldn't live in the world. So this was a little game that he played, that he never forgot his real nature. He never stopped thinking of himself as a child of the mother, but sometimes impatient. This is also the attitude of the Shaktas, that they'll complain to the Divine Mother. We can take that attitude. That it doesn't always have to be, oh Lord, whatever you do is for my best. I know that. No, it can be, Mother, how dare you? How did you let that happen to me? I'm your child. I rely on you for everything. It's a very typical attitude for the worshippers of the Divine Mother. Now and then I become impatient about my arm. I show it to this or that man and ask him whether I shall get well again. That makes Rakal angry. Yeah, Rakal angry because he's afraid that people won't respect Sri Ramakrishna. They'll think, what kind of holy man is this? Always complaining and asking people and everything. He doesn't understand my mood, Rakal. Now and then I say to myself, let him go away. Again, I say to the mother, Mother, where will he go? Why should he burn himself in the frying pan of the world? Now, actually, he did go away for some time. It's very interesting that he took a trip to Vrindavan with his in-laws, Satubai. Yeah. And it's very interesting because somehow Sri Ramakrishna felt that it was important that he wasn't there at that time, because he was so jealous that it would have been hard for the other devotees to come. And at the same time, he was very nervous when he was there because he heard that he fell ill. And Thakur had this theory that some of these very special souls, these Ishwarakotis, other special souls, these avatar, if they go back into an environment that will remind them of what aspect of divinity they came from, however we understand that, that they may give up the body there. So he looked upon Rakal, of course, as a companion of Sri Krishna. So he doesn't say it explicitly, but this is my understanding, that slight fear was there that he may give up the body there in Vrindavan. But at the same time, as I say, he later said it's good that he wasn't there at that time, that he was pulled away just at the right time. Otherwise, some of the other direct disciples, he was so jealous that he made it hard for them a little bit. Everyone in Sri Ramakrishna's presence, they went into a different mood and they played a different role in this Leela. It's interesting how that worked out. So it's interesting, he says, now and then I say to myself, let him go away. He actually did go away for some, not for very long, but, and when they found that his fever was gone, he was feeling better, and Sri Ramakrishna was very much relieved. He himself never went to Puri or Gaya, these places, because his father had that dream that when he was in Gaya, that Narayana Vishnu would be born to their family. And also he had such a strong identification with Chaitanya Deva, and he was Rama, he was Krishna, and everything. So Puri also, he avoided those places. And that's why when Holy Mother went there, she used to show his picture sometimes, yeah, to the deity, especially if Thakur hadn't been there. So that she had this belief that somehow the photograph and the person are one and the same, that then Sri Ramakrishna could have that vision of Jagannath. I mentioned before, I traveled for some time with a young monk of our order, a little bit off. Usually the monks who are a little bit off, they don't have too much to do, and if any visitor comes, they'll show them around. So whenever I would go to different ashrams and the monks had to take me to different places, they were always a little bit off. And, he was nice, a nice young monk, but he also did that. We went to the Chitrakoot, and if you go there, there are dozens and dozens of temples, one after another, Everyone he would go, he would take out his picture of Thakur and Holy Mother and hold it in front of them so that they could see. It was sweet, but it was anyhow. Holy Mother also did that with Sri Ramakrishna. This childlike impatience of mine is nothing new. I used to ask Mathur Babu to feel my pulse and tell me whether I was ill. Well, where then is my faith in God? These are silly questions. Huh? He's just playing with the devotees. That who can possibly question his faith in Divine Mother? Everything was full of reliance on Divine Mother, but he just wants them to understand that this is just a childlike mood and attitude that comes on. Well, where then is my faith in God? Once I was going to Kamarpukur in a bullock cart, when several persons came up to the cart with clubs in their hands. They looked like highwaymen. I began to chant the names of the gods. Sometimes I repeated the name of Rama and Durga, and sometimes Om Tat Sat, so that in case one failed, another would work. To M, can you tell me why I am so impatient? M, your mind, sir. See, M, he would ask M. M will give the right answer. He's pretty sure. It's partly to test M, but it's also so that he doesn't have to give the answer. Let M explain. M, your mind, sir, is always absorbed in samadhi. You have kept a fraction of it on your body for the welfare of the devotees. Therefore, you feel impatient now and then for your body's safety. Master, that is true. A little of the mind is attached to the body. It wants to enjoy the love of God and the company of the devotees. Sri Ramakrishna had a very strong sense of mission, we can say, that his life was not meant just for his own enjoyment, that there was a purpose to his life, that it was meant to be an example, that Divine Mother had kept him in the world for a certain reason. This is why he was so anxious for the devotees to come. And the inner circle devotees, the Swamiji and others, and M, all of them, because they were the ones who would carry his message to the world. He had to be that living example and proof of God realization so that we will all know that it's true and possible. And he had to have people to carry that message. So otherwise it would all be in vain. His coming would be in vain. Sometimes he would talk like that. Holy Mother also, that unless she continued, his coming would have been in vain. He only reached a handful of people. She had to carry this message to so many others, initiate so many others, and help look after the monastic order and everything. Mani Mallik told the master about an exhibition that was being held in Calcutta. He described a beautiful image of Yashoda with the baby Krishna on her lap. Sri Ramakrishna's eyes filled with tears. When hearing about Yashoda, the embodiment of maternal love, his spiritual consciousness was kindled and he wept. This relationship between mother and child, this is one of those relationships that works both ways. That we can think of ourselves as the child and look upon God as mother, or we can think of ourselves as the mother and look upon God as the child. So this, in the Vaishnava tradition, it's always Mother Yashoda looking upon the baby Gopala, and in the Shakta tradition, is always the Divine Mother is looked upon as our very own mother. There's not the same tradition of some Puranic ideal where there's one particular person who represents the Divine Mother and one who represents the child. The Vaishnava tradition with the Bhagavad and everything, we have more specific things, or Ramayana. So this Dasya Bhava, then we have the example of Hanuman and Rama. But with his mother worship, it's any mother and every child is the example. There's nothing, not one particular type. So Sri Ramakrishna, when Rakal was there, he was in the mood of Mother Yashoda. When Gopala Ma came, he was in the mood of Gopala. And both were natural and easy for him. And he didn't choose these things. So automatically the mind would get into that mood. That was the nature of his mind, that it was very susceptible to these triggers. So that something would trigger something. He called it uddipana. This is very common. We see it in the life of Radha, looking at the peacock and looking at the blue sky and blue clouds, and also Chaitanya Deva, this uddipana. On hearing about Yashoda, the embodiment of maternal love, his spiritual consciousness was kindled, and he wept. Uddipana. Munilal. If you were not unwell, you could visit the exhibition in the Moidan. Moidan is a big open area near the Ganga in central Calcutta. They set up fairs and all sorts of things there. Master 2M and the others. I shan't be able to see everything even if I go. Perhaps my eyes will fall on some certain thing, and I shall become unconscious. It was also in this Moidan where he saw that English boy leaning against a tree, bent in three places, just like the picture of Krishna, and went into samadhi. Lost all the outer consciousness. And then everything is spoiled. They have to carry him home, if it's a very deep type of samadhi. Perhaps my eyes will fall on some certain thing, and I shall become unconscious. Then I shall not be able to see the rest. I was taken to the zoological garden. I went into samadhi at the sight of the lion, for the carrier of the mother awakened in my mind the consciousness of the mother herself. All of the different gods and goddesses have their own different vehicles, different carriers. In that state, who could see the other animals? I had to return home after seeing only the lion. Hence, Jadu Mallik's mother first suggested that I should go to the exhibition and then said I should not. Jadu Mallik's mother was very much dear to Sri Ramakrishna. She was very much attached to him, very, very devoted to him. She was much more spiritual than her son, Jadu. He was a very wealthy man. Mani Mallik, about 65 years old, had been a member of the Brahmo Samaj for many years, and Sri Ramakrishna gave him instruction that would agree with his mood. Master. Pundit Jayanarayan had very liberal views. I visited him once and liked his attitude, but his sons wore high boots. So that means that they dressed like British. They had picked up all of the habits of the British who were there. He told me he intended to go to Benares and live there, and at last he carried out his intention, for later on he did live in Benares and die there. When one grows old, one should retire like Jayanarayan and devote oneself to the thought of God. What do you say? 65 years old was a ripe old age in those days. Manila, true, sir. I don't relish the worries and troubles of the world. Master, Gaudi, this is Gaudi Pandit. He was a great a scholar and spiritual soul also, used to worship his wife with offerings of flowers. All women are manifestations of the Divine Mother, to Manilal. Please tell them that little story of yours. Manilal, smiling. Once, several men were crossing the Ganges in a boat. One of them, a pundit, was making a great display of his erudition, saying that he had studied various books, the Vedas, the Vedanta, and the 6 systems of philosophy. He asked a fellow passenger, "Do you know the Vedanta?" "No, revered sir." "The Sankhya and Patanjali?" "No, revered sir." "Have you read no philosophy whatsoever?" "No, revered sir." The pundit was talking in this vain way, and the passenger sitting in silence, when a great storm arose and the boat was about to sink. The passenger said to the pundit, "Sir, can you swim?" "No," replied the pundit. The passenger said, "I don't know the Sankhya or the Patanjali, but I can swim." Master, smiling, "What will a man gain by knowing many scriptures? The one thing needful is to know how to cross the river of the world. God alone is real, and all else is illusory." Here, whenever I see these terms, I will go back to look at the Bengali because I'm always curious about these translations. Here is vastu and avastu. So I like substantial and hollow. That type of idea. God alone is real, and all else is a passing show. We can say something like that. No substance to it. Sri Ramakrishna had a little bit of this attitude of the Buddhist attitude that don't get too involved in all of these things. That we want to accomplish what this goal of life is. If we waste all of our time with scripture and study and trying to know the answer to all of these questions, we won't be able to go past the suffering and get to that state of nirvana. Sri Ramakrishna liked that attitude. While Arjuna was aiming his arrow at the eye of the bird, Drona asked him, "What do you see? Do you see these kings?" "No, sir," replied Arjuna. "Do you see me?" "No." "The tree?" "No." "The bird on the tree?" "No." "What do you see then?" "Only the eye of the bird." He who sees only the eye of the bird can hit the mark. This means 2 things. One is in meditation. It means to be absolutely focused on the object of meditation, which of course is very hard. But the other thing is not to miss the goal of life, to know what we're trying to achieve in life, and to go straight ahead, a little tunnel vision, not to look this way or that way, or let the mind get attached to this or that, but go straight to the goal. He who sees only only the eye of the bird can hit the mark. He alone is clever, who sees that God is real and all else is illusory. What need have I of other information? Hanuman once remarked, "I don't know anything about the phase of the moon or the position of the stars. I only contemplate Rama." Yeah, sometimes we get so hung up on these philosophical questions that I wonder if we really stop to think how important it is for us. I was thinking today, especially, this idea that consciousness, is it one or is it many? Huh? Suppose I have my samadhi, you have your samadhi. Huh? Is there only one consciousness or 2 different consciousnesses in that state of samadhi? Now, the philosophers have a big argument about these things. I was thinking, who really cares? Well, one achieves that state, whole life is changed and transformed, and perfect freedom and joy and bliss. That where does that question arise from, and why did they get so angry with each other? No, there has to be one. Consciousness can only be one. The other would say, no, there are many jivas. Each one is like a drop. It can go into the ocean again and go back to the ocean. Yeah, who really cares? I wonder sometimes. But the whole history of of philosophy, not just Indian philosophy, is people arguing over these things. But then we stop and think, how does it affect my life? And how does it affect the goal of life? I want to achieve that ultimate state. After achieving that ultimate state, will I care? There's the dualist, the qualified non-dualist, the non-dualist. They can all have that ultimate experience and come back and still argue with each other. But at that point, who cares? Huh? So this, I think, what Sri Ramakrishna is saying here is that let's not lose sight of the eye of the bird, what we're really trying to achieve in life, and not to bother too much about these. Sometimes there'll be discussions, and Thakur will say, that's for the philosophers. The philosophical distinction. Now, if this idea of oneness is something that will keep us on the track, and we have great faith in that, then it's a good thing, of course. But if it's just a philosophical thing, there's a question in the mind. Is there one witness or many witnesses? Huh? We can make an argument for either one. Who really cares? I want to be established in that state of the witness, where I'm not affected by anything, where I can simply watch and feel that grandeur. We have the bird on the top of the tree. So what if there are many trees and many birds? Each one has a bird at the top and a bird at the bottom. We can say, well, they're all that one bird appearing as many birds. Okay. How does that really affect me? Huh? This, of course, is a little blasphemous, this type of attitude for especially for the non-dualists. But if we really put our whole heart and soul into spiritual practice and not bother, we won't figure out these things ahead of time. We find one that appeals to us. That's all. I also like this idea of oneness. It appeals to me, but I can appreciate the attitude of the dualists and the qualified non-dualists also. And they can also, Thakur says, they can have the highest realization through that. This is a Hanuman, huh? That sometimes he likes this complete dualistic attitude, servant, master. Then sometimes absolute oneness. The Rama, whatever you are, I am that same. But the third one, that in between one, you're the whole and I'm a part. I'm a wave on this whole ocean. They're all attitudes, spiritual attitudes for Sri Ramakrishna. It's not that one is true and the other is false. And we don't have to argue one against the other. They're all different spiritual attitudes and spiritual paths. So Hanuman once remarked, I don't know anything about the phase of the moon or the position of the stars. I only contemplate Rama. Now, Sri Ramakrishna is so involved with this philosophical discussion that the next thing he says to him is, please buy a few fans for our use here. So that means that he's simply saying things that will appeal now to appeal to Manila. Not simply saying it. These are important things that he's saying. But the point is that Thakur wasn't a philosopher in the sense that he's trying to establish one position and he's arguing for it. He's showing that these are different ways of looking at it. But the main point he's making here is this book knowledge is not so helpful. And it's really how can we live in the world? Learning how to swim means how to live in the world without drowning in the world and how to be able to get to the other side. That these are the critical things. To Manilal, look here, pay a visit to his, meaning M's father. The sight of a devotee will inspire you. Now, this also surprises me. I don't know. We don't think of M's father as a great devotee, that he was actually the one who seemed to object to M being too devoted to Sri Ramakrishna and not spending enough time with the family and everything. Maybe he also, in his own way, was a devotee. I don't know. Anybody know anything? So do I. M's father, we don't hear anything, right? Except that M didn't get along with him so well. They went back and forth. To M, since my arm was injured, okay, I'll stop here. This is a very important thing. I'll just read this, then we'll begin with this again. Since my arm was injured, a deep change has come over me. So we always say that Sri Ramakrishna, he could go one mood to the other. He could just kind of go back and forth. One thing would trigger this, one would trigger that. No, but he did have this little slight change of attitude that he'll uh, explain in terms of this broken arm. Since my arm was injured, a deep change has come over me. I now delight only in the Nara Lila, the human manifestation of God. Nitya and Lila. The Nitya is the indivisible Satchidananda, and the Lila or sport takes various forms, such as the Lila of God, the Lila as the deities, the Lila as man, and the Lila as the universe. Vaishnav Charan used to say that one has attained perfect knowledge if one believes in God sporting as man. I wouldn't admit it then, but now I realize that he was right. Vaishnav Charan liked pictures of man expressing tenderness and love. Okay, so we'll start. We'll start with this next time. Yeah, if we want to say what was the hidden reason for Thakur having to break his arm, that we can give this type of explanation that he felt Divine Mother was telling him, don't see God just in ecstasy. You'll fall down and break your arm. See God with eyes open, dwelling within all beings. So, okay, so we will stop here. Niranjanam nityamanantarupam bhaktanukam bhathudavikraham Ishavataram Parameshamedhyam Tam Ramakrishnam Shirasanamam. We bow our heads before Sri Ramakrishna, who is stainless, of infinite nature, whose heart melts in sympathy for his devotees, who is an embodiment of the divine and the Supreme Lord, and ever worthy of our worship. Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. Peace, peace, peace be unto.